Hey guys, so after having a how to replace rear brake pads video turn into how to replace a rear caliper, we now have done just that. So here's the new caliper right here, because this one is seized up and there's nothing you can do with it. So when I left the car overnight, it rained yesterday, which is why you're seeing all of this rust, which was not there yesterday. The calipers are very expensive, so I made sure that I buy two because I can't just buy one and replace the other side. Now that you've seen how to take off the caliper, because that's what we did exactly yesterday, so what we need to do right now is to remove the brake lines and then also remove this pipe. You will then need to make sure that you remove the caliper. So as you can see right now, here is where the new brake pads were, which is right there. So the first thing you're gonna need to do is to counter hold this bolt with a 17mm spanner. You will then need to use your 11mm spanner just to twist this bolt right here, which is essentially the bolt which has locked in the brake fluid. Once you start twisting this one, you'll need to make sure that you really remove it quickly, because you're going to lose a lot of brake fluid. And then after doing that, we will need to remove this rear end brake cable. After removing the rear end brake cable, then we are going to just remove the caliper and put in the new one. So what you need to do is to remove this clip first, then counter hold the 17mm, remove this bolt. So when this happens, you're going to lose a lot of brake fluid if you are not quick enough. So you need to make sure that you are quick. Okay, so I've quickly pulled it out so that I can plug it before losing a lot of brake fluid. But yeah, so I made sure that I plug the brake line with this yellow thing so that the brake fluid does not get lost. So what I'm doing right now is just to abduct this brake line just to make sure that it stays facing up so that it doesn't lose any brake fluid if it faces down. So now that is off. So what I can do right now is just to make sure that I remove the end brake cable. So to remove the end brake cable, all you need to do is just to press or compress back the spring. After compressing back the spring, you can then be able to remove the end brake cable. Okay, so it's off. I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but it's off. Now after getting it off, there are some two kind of like spring-loaded things on this clip, so you just need to press these two and they will get pressed in and you can be able to pull off the caliper. Okay, so they are now twisted, so I think we can be able to then brake cable just like that. Okay, the end brake cable is off. So here's the caliper. So what you need to make sure is that you remove this pipe right here, because it needs to go back in. You'll need to have your 11mm spanner. So the bolt is now loose. Now we just have to remove it like that. Okay, so this is off. This will need to go back in. So brake fluid are supposed to come up when I'm doing this, because when you pull the end brake, it pushes the caliper inside so that it can hold onto the rear brake disc. So when you do this, you're supposed to see some fluid spitting out. So because the fluid is not spitting out, that means it's not able to push the piston back up so that it can be able to hold the brake disc. So this is why this caliper is seized. So I'm going to take you out and get the new one in. Here we have the new caliper, as you can see. So we're not going to compress this thing right here because this caliper comes with brake fluid, so it has been pre-bled, so you don't need to bleed the brakes after installing the calipers. This end of the pipe, this end which is bent too much, will go in here, and then the other end will go into the brake line itself. So this is the new caliper. This is the one that we need to get back in. Right now, what we need to do is just to put back the brake line, which is this one right here. What you need to do is to make sure that you put it in when the caliper is still facing upwards, so that you are not going to be able to spill the brake fluid which is preloaded onto the caliper. So you need to fill it in like this, and then when you raise it up, that's when you're going to connect the brake line, which is right here. So for now, you're going to need to hold it like this and make sure that you screw in this brake line. This is the brake line that you need to screw in. The brake line is now on. What you need to do is just make sure you don't tighten it too much so that you can be able to at least have some room to move it and align this brake line with this hole right here where you're going to be putting through the new brake line, which is at the top right here. So this brake line needs to go through here. So you need to make sure that you don't twist this or you don't tighten it too much, so that you can be able to still twist it. So when you're putting in the brake line, which is right here, there's nothing you can do. There's no way you're not going to lose brake fluid. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. The brake caliper bolts are now in and everything is in. However, I am not getting through with getting this pipe on, because as you can see, this pipe is supposed to slide down all the way in, but right now it cannot do anything because these are not factory fitted brake calipers, so they are causing an issue with trying to do that. So I think I'm just going to leave it as it is, because I'm really sure that it's secured, but I'm just not happy with the seating, because that means I'm not able to get the other clip in, which is really not ideal. But I guess this is what I'm left with, because I was not able to just push all the way through. As you can see right now, the brake fluid which was leaking is no longer leaking, to show that this has been seated nicely. I can just maybe try to tighten over here just for a more secured fitting, but I believe this is all good. But this is a job well done. So what we can do before anything is just to pump up the brakes and see if there's no fluid leaking anywhere. So as you can tell right now, the car is on, as you can hear it running, but I don't see any leaks right here. So I think everything is good. So I think we can now shut the car off. So we also have a spongy brake pedal to show that we don't have the rear brakes. So yeah, the brake caliper is now back on. So what we need to do right now is to get the brakes bled, because we introduced air onto the system when we removed this brake line right here. So that's how to replace the rear brake pads and also replace the brake piston caliper.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt